And for more, I'm joined by author and lawyer Eva Gollinger, who's actually in Caracas right now. Good to see you there, Eva. So Hugo Chavez, via Twitter, of all outlets, said, quote, "This is a solid victory sufficient to continue deepening Bolivarian and democratic socialism." But the opposition has called the vote a setback for the president because it'll obviously make it more difficult for him to pass laws or make appointments to the Supreme Court without working with the opposition. So help us make sense of all of this.
Well, first of all, I mean, it's not a major setback. The pro-Chavez, pro-government parties, the PSUV, took 60% of Venezuela's parliament. I mean, that's a very solid victory. Few political parties in the world could claim such a victory in a parliamentary system. Even the U.S. system with the Democrat Party only has 58% right now, and that's considered a substantial majority. And that's just a two-party system. This is a system with over 20 different political parties that participated in the elections on Sunday. So first of all, it's a sound victory, very solid, and it does give the absolute majority necessary to pass the principal laws needed to continue the implementation of the policies that Chavez has been pursuing during the past several years. So while there will be, more difficulties passing laws that here are called organic laws, which originate from the Constitution, they're sort of directed by the Constitution, laws that come out of articles that need to be passed in order to guarantee certain constitutional rights. Those types of laws do require a two-thirds majority, which and so those types of laws will not be easily passed without, debate with the opposition forces. But the large majority of laws will be, as well as the policy. So, and budget issues, all that kind of stuff is safe and sound in the hands of Chavez's party in terms of him being able to continue with his agenda.
But still, you are right. They still got a majority. But many folks, not just in Venezuela, but here in the U.S. and around the world, are saying this is still a reflection that Hugo Chavez isn't as popular as some people thought that he would be, even the number of seats that the opposition was able to get. How would you respond to that then?
Well, again, we have to point out that in the last elections in 2005, the opposition boycotted, so they had no seats. So this is like starting from zero. Of course, they're going to get something, and anything is going to be considered a win, and whatever they win is going to be considered some kind of victory against President Chavez. But in the elections in 2000, the prior parliamentary elections, they had 80 seats. I mean, they had almost a majority in the National Assembly. So again. As though international media primarily and national media here have been trying to portray this as some kind of referendum on Chavez's popularity, it's really not, because if we look at the figures exactly, the states that took the most votes for the opposition were either already opposition sort of core states like Zulia or Táchira, where there's really no movement for change there in terms of advancing the pro-Chavez party, and other states such as Anzoátegui, which was actually a very pro-Chavez state, voted over 70% for him in the last presidential elections in 2006. So that was a vote that's not any kind of indication against Chavez himself, but against the local politicians. And Venezuelans, they have something that's called the punishment vote, that when the local politicians aren't acting in accordance with how they wish them to, they'll vote against them to take them out. And it doesn't matter if they're members of Chavez's party or not. And it doesn't matter if they support Chavez or not. They don't want those particular politicians, running the show in their regions. And so I think the vote is more a reflection of certain discontent of, other public officials in different regions in the country.
Now, Eva, another interesting point here is that there's been some debate as to who may or may not be financing the opposition. I know that you've been pretty vocal about that. I just want you to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, it's not who may or may not be, it's who has been funding the opposition for years, but particularly in this campaign, international agencies have been intervening in Venezuela's affairs in different electoral processes over the past several years since Chavez came to power. And in this particular election, we had funding coming out of USAID, National Endowment for Democracy, the International Republican Institute, several European foundations, funding campaigns, setting up, workshops, campaign workshops in schools to train and capacitate these different opposition candidates, trying to give them an edge on campaigning. And it works because their campaigns are generally much better than the campaigns that are run by the Chavez camp. And again, they focus on certain issues that get messages across in a very simplistic and easy and digestible way that translate through to the people, and the people, listen to them. And so, yeah, the funding is effective. It's illegal, but it's effective.
Hugo Chavez supporter, author, and lawyer Eva Gollinger, we do appreciate your time and analysis here on RT. There for us in Caracas, Venezuela.